Another night of severe weather across parts of the South, although it was actually much more active earlier, but still it's busy in some places tonight, from Texas to the southeast coast. Gloom and doom is settling into the northeast and northern mid Atlantic states for tonight through Friday night. And will you be able to see the solar storm? Well, Joe Rayo, I'm sure, has an opinion on that. And we have opinions about all sorts of things here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. And if you make a purchase of this or anything else from the Tempest website, use the coupon code Spring 2024, because if you do, you will get.
You'll get a big 10% off, Joe.
And here we are. Good evening, Mr. Rayo. Welcome, everybody on the chat board to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And for those of you lurking in the background, we give a big hello to you as well. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, because this way you won't miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35, and the occasional Friday and Saturday when there's a big storm around. This is not one of those occasions, by the way. And turn your notifications on so that you don't miss us. And if you like the show, hit the like button. So before we get into all the weather tonight, Mr. Rayo, of course, breaking news. We have another one of these solar storm things that apparently this was impressive, and we'll be sitting around once again tomorrow night. Will it or won't it put on a light show? So we're going to leave it to you to tell everybody what you think about all this.
I think, Joe, that I'm usually, kind of like, yeah, well, I mean, I don't really think that this looks like a very, very good opportunity to see the Northern Lights. First of all, we've had one of the biggest sunspot groups that I've seen in many, many years, now crossing the disk of the sun. This thing is gigundous, if there's such a word, gigantic. And from this spot group, there has been almost on a daily basis more than a few major solar flares, which have been spouting all of this subatomic material out into space. And apparently there have been 3 or 4 of these flares that have been really significant. I mean, X-class flares. Whenever you get flares that are in the X-class category, you have to look and you have to be concerned. We've not had just one of these. We've had like 3 or 4, and they've all been aimed toward the Earth. And now NOAA came out this afternoon with the comment that it looks like we're going to be in line for what is called a cannibal flare. In other words, one of these is faster and more energetic than the other 2 or 3. And so basically it's going to move forward, gather up the subatomic particle fields of the other 2 or 3 solar storms, and then we'll be pushing all of this right toward us, and it will probably impact the Earth, or at least the upper atmosphere of the Earth, the polar magnetic pole regions, sometime late tomorrow or tomorrow night into early Saturday. And they normally, when they talk about magnetic storms, geomagnetic storms, it's kind of like the Saffir-Simpson scale. They go on not on a 1 to 5, but a 1 to 4 scale. G1, G2, G3, G4. For us to see in our area, the latitude of New York, for us to have a shot at seeing the Northern Lights, they would put up an advisory or a warning for a G3 category solar storm. This coming our way, this cannibal, with all of this activity pushing in our direction, this, according to NOAA, is going to rank possibly a G4 storm. And they even said in their statement this afternoon at 1:30, that they issued a statement at 1:30, they said this has the potential of pushing the visibility zone of the Northern Lights as far down south as California and Alabama. And Joe, that means that you in northern Georgia will have a shot at seeing the Northern Lights sometime tomorrow night. I will not see them, and nobody in the tri-state area will see them because, of course, with this major event coming up, this major significant geomagnetic storm, the skies are expected to be totally overcast. As Joe would say, gloom and doom.
Gloom and doom, yes.
We're gonna have periods of rain here, beginning tonight and lasting through tomorrow, and on into tomorrow evening at least, and in fact much of tomorrow night. So your chances of seeing anything spectacular here is, eh. But for anyone who has clear weather across the northern and central United States, tomorrow night could be a most interesting night for looking for and seeing the aurora borealis, the northern lights, which doesn't happen very often.
Well, I have the cloud cover map from Pivotal Weather off the GFS, so we could actually take a look at this. Now, the blue is cloud cover, folks. Where it's white is where skies are clear. Okay, and some of the darker blues, that's where you have some sort of cloud coverage in between. This is at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, and uh, so now we're at the point where you mentioned also pointing out that this is your 8 o'clock sunset starts today. So this is just at 8 o'clock. But we can go to 11 o'clock and you'll notice that all of the Northeast, except for northern Maine, is swapped in clouds. Okay. But if
Yep.
you're in Western PA, Ohio, from Virginia south to Georgia, back to Alabama, northern Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, mostly clear skies. Most of going a little bit further back, there's a little leftover cloud cover in Kansas in the northeastern part of the state, and I'm looking at the percentages here. They're like in the 20 to 40% range. So that's at 11 a.m. At 2 a.m., uh, still a lot of cloud cover in the northeast, going back to western PA, but clear all in the southeast, much of the Ohio Valley, except as you get closer to the Great Lakes, then you get into an overcast there. And the northern plains, mostly clear, the west coast, mostly clear. And at 5 a.m., uh, starting to see the clouds break up a bit. There's a clearing line at 5 a.m., if you believe the GFS, that goes down the Hudson Valley into northern New Jersey, where the cloud cover, Joe, is 20% or less. But now
Well,
you're all, now
that,
you're getting into sunrise time.
that, as I just said, that doesn't help me any because it would be coming up on sunrise by that time. But if you're going to see it down your way, it would not be the kind of northern lights display that you see up in the Arctic regions or whatever. What you probably would see if there is any activity to be seen would probably be a rather odd looking or weird looking red glow over in the northern part of the sky. And I tell you, the last time that they had something like this back in 1989, the fire department of Amarillo, Texas, some of the guys were looking out and they said, "Oh my God, look how red the sky looks in the north." And they actually climbed into their trucks and started north thinking that there was a major fire because that usually major fire would cause a red glow in the sky. And after a while, when they realized that, what is this? This is not a fire. It turned out to be the northern lights. So you may see your northern sky light up with a reddish coloration and maybe some shades of other colorations as well sometime tomorrow night if this all comes to fruition. I can't see why it would not. I mean, as I noted, there wasn't just one solar flare. There were three or four of them, and it looks like one of them is going to kind of swallow up the other two or three, and the whole batch of subatomic material is going to literally crash right into the upper atmosphere and interact with the polar regions as magnetic poles tomorrow night, and that should cause a significant display of the northern lights. And well, for those of you who are in the clear zone, you just saw Joe put up the cloud map, and we know we don't have everybody in the New York area. We have other people in other parts of the country. If you're in the clear zone, check that sky tomorrow night from time to time and place to place and see if indeed you'll get a shot at seeing the aurora borealis, the northern lights.
All right. Meantime, last night when I went to bed, there was a tornado warning. I live in Union County in North Georgia, and the county to the west of me is Fadden County. The county just west of that is Gilmer County, and we had a tornado warning uh, that and a tornado that apparently moved through uh, that part of North Georgia. I've just got two shots that I found today with regards to some of the damage that now I don't know if it was confirmed or not. Information travels slow in these parts, Joe, but it was pretty impressive here. Let me see. Why is it not coming up? Hold on a second. Uh, okay, hold on, just a moment here. I'll try again. And okay, now we got it. So this is, I'm not exact. I know this is in Ellijay, which is about 40 minutes to the west of me. And you can see whatever was there was wiped out rather badly. And if we go to, no, that's my one of my flower beds. And here's another shot where we had some you see the damage there from from this tornado that they had, or possible tornado. Again, I don't know if it was confirmed or not, but we'll find out soon enough. And
Joe, does it really matter if that damage was caused by a
so
tornado,
I know it's a straight line
right?
or tornado.
Micro,
Yeah, I mean it's
or
damage.
microburst or whatever?
Uh,
I
Yeah,
just,
either way, it's damage. So, yeah,
yeah.
but the thunderstorms were pretty fierce last night. I went to bed with a tornado watch up. I woke up this morning with a new tornado watch up. Got a lot of rain, 2.5 inches of rain here, and I'm sure areas around town probably got 3 or 4 inches. Had just enough of a break period this morning that I was able to run out and get the dog to the dog park. And then when I got back, it started raining again. But then around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the dry line came through. It went mostly sunny, not a cloud in the sky, and at the moment, it's pretty nice. But we do have severe thunderstorm watches and some tornado watches up right now. One in east central Mississippi across central Alabama, another that covers southwestern Arkansas, northwest Louisiana, and much of northeast Texas and points to the southwest of there. And there's also some counties there in Texas and central Texas that are under a tornado watch. And we'll get to SPC in a moment. And this is what it looks like as far as the lightning strikes are concerned. Those morning storms that went through me, then where you see those lightning strikes moving off the Georgia coast, that's where those storms wound up, and now they've moved on offshore. And you can see some cells bubbling up in central Alabama with some clouds jetting eastward. So I'm wondering whether I might see another shower or thunderstorm during the overnight if that stuff holds together and moves east. And then you've got this short wave that is moving through Oklahoma, western Arkansas into Texas there, and a lot of lightning strikes going on. Meanwhile, you mentioned as far as to weather today in the Northeast that it would be a slow descent into the land of gloom and doom, and I think that describes the day pretty well because it wasn't terrible, it wasn't that bad really, but it's clouded over now for the most part, and you can see clouds going all the way back to Iowa, and those are pushing eastward. And tomorrow's going to be, I guess the word miserable comes to mind.
Yeah, it doesn't look all that great. I mean, it not only is it going to be cloudy, and not only is it going to be wet and damp, but the temperatures at this time of the year now, Joe, we have reached that point in the calendar where the average high temperature, at least here in the lower Hudson Valley, should be right around 70. We're not going to be anywhere near 70 tomorrow. We may not even be anywhere near 60 tomorrow. We may only be in the mid and upper 50s, if that high. So it is going to be kind of a drab, dreary uh, G and D day, as Joe would. I'm getting tired of saying gloom and doom, but it's gonna be not a very pretty day out there for tomorrow.
And we still also have what's left of the upper low back in the Rockies here. You can see clouds there with a little bit of leftover precip going on in that particular area. But here's the radar tonight, and actually there's a fair amount of light rain. It's scattered over Long Island and parts of Connecticut, New Jersey. Becomes a little more continuous as you move into across into and across Pennsylvania into western Ohio with a few heavier downpours. For some reason, it's not looping. Oh, there we go. There you go. All of it sliding to the east. So as we go through the nighttime hours, you're going to see rain develop and overspread the area. And tomorrow, may not rain all the time, every waking minute, but when it's not, it's just going to be very gray and very dismal, as you described. Some showers that go back tonight into uh, the northern parts of Indiana and central Illinois, also into eastern Iowa. There's a couple of rumbles of thunder in a few places there. Here's the stuff that's off the southeast coast now, so that's done. But we've got a few severe thunderstorm warnings that have gone out in parts of Alabama and Mississippi. You can see the boxes there, and a cluster of severe thunderstorms between Dallas and Houston and San Antonio in that triangle there. So probably not that far from Austin. We've got a cluster of severe thunderstorms there. I haven't seen any tornado warnings, so that's a plus. The Storm Prediction Center has two two tornado watches. There's one in southeast Georgia now that it's just really down to a handful of counties in southeast Alabama. And the other one is back in central Texas that's getting whittled away as well. Three severe thunderstorm watches in the blue in east and southeast Texas, the other in northeast Texas, northwest Louisiana, southwest Arkansas, southeast Oklahoma, and the third is in east central Mississippi across central Alabama, right to the Georgia state line. So those are going to play themselves out. There's a marginal risk in Virginia, northeastern North Carolina, back across West Virginia and Ohio. There's not much activity going on there. And you've got an area of general thunderstorms in the central Rockies. Now, tomorrow, two areas. One, and this is because of an upper low and shortwave that's dropping southeast through the Great Lakes. So you have a marginal risk in Wisconsin, parts of Wisconsin and eastern Minnesota. And then along the East Coast, with a low in Virginia and a trailing cold front, we've got a marginal risk for eastern North and South Carolina down into southern Georgia, back to southern Alabama and to the Florida Panhandle. Then it becomes a slight risk in southern Georgia and in northern Florida, goes back to a marginal risk as you get it to central Florida, and then it cuts off from there. And actually, this is good news because I think this is the first time in days where we haven't had a 3 day where we haven't had we don't have a enhanced risk anywhere. We don't have a moderate risk anywhere. We don't have a high risk anywhere. And on day three, just a small area of marginal risk in southwest Texas. Otherwise, it's very quiet, and there's nothing in the long range. So that's good. This has been a really crazy period here. I just want to see how many tornadoes. Today's storm report has two tornadoes in it. Yesterday had 19. So I think we went into yesterday with 109 tornadoes. So that made it for the month. So that makes it 128. And today you add another two. So that's 130 tornadoes in 9 days so far in the month of May.
My God. And that's like almost like a month's worth, it would seem to me.
Yeah, April was just a two. I think 298 was the number, or 299, which was the second highest on record for the month of April. So, uh, but it wasn't. It's it ebbs and flows, and I think we'll probably see it ebb a little bit now going into the weekend and early next week, and then probably pick up at some point next week. When I was looking at the long range, I thought maybe there might be some, a couple of days next week where there's going to be severe weather around. Meanwhile, as far as rainfall is concerned, for the next 7 days in the Northeast from Pennsylvania to New Jersey, an inch and a half plus. Everybody else is from anywhere from a half an inch to an inch and a half. From central Vermont and New Hampshire on southward, picks up again in Virginia, coastal North and South Carolina, a couple of inches there. And then we've got areas of 3 to as much as 5 inches of rain from southern Georgia westward back into Louisiana and East Texas. So some very wet weather across the Gulf states over the next 7 days. Tails off a bit in the Great Lakes, tails off in the northern plains, and nice and quiet in the West Coast. Trough in the East, Joe, is back. So uh, that means that uh, at least for a little bit, Places like the Great Plains will catch a break from the day-to-day severe weather attacks that they've been having. And now we're going into a weekend, which I think for the most part, I mean, it's not going to be a bad weekend. Um, there's you have to put showers in for both Saturday and for Sunday, but it's not the sort of thing where it rains all the time. It's just going to be more nuisance than anything else. And then the rest of the time is going to be, clouds. Maybe the sun breaks through from time to time and from place to place, but it ain't going to be picture perfect.
No, it's not. But as I've said before, and I'll say it again, regardless of the weather, I mean, my daughter-in-law called up late last night, Joe, and invited us over to her house on Sunday for Mother's Day brunch. So we'll be indoors. It doesn't matter if it's gloom and doom or cloudy and wet or dank. It's most people I think either are going to be at some other person's home on Sunday or at a restaurant, and that's the way it should be on Mother's Day. All the moms certainly deserve their day. And we want to thank also David Fuller for hitting super chats. Thank you very much, David.
All right, let's check what's going on in the overall pattern here. So why don't we bring up the upper air and you know the trough now in the east, and you can see there's a short wave that is swinging on tonight and Friday through the northeast and off the coast, and there's another one that's dropping down into the western Great Lakes Friday night into Saturday. That's going to be over the northeast Saturday and Sunday, and this is why we have to put in the chance for showers because that it represents a cold and somewhat unstable air mass that's going to be overhead. So uh, that certainly will allow for the development of some scattered showers. And then once that pulls out, there's an upper low in the southwest. This is part of the old Montana storm. Now that kind of meanders its way down into the southwest and then eventually gets kicked eastward for Monday into Kansas and Missouri. That doesn't look all that, it's not strengthening, so that's a good thing. There'll probably be some thunderstorms with that, and then that swings off to the East Coast come Tuesday and Wednesday. But you still have more troughing in the east, and another system. This is where in the middle of next week, Joe, some kind of deeper trough moves into the into the Mississippi Valley with an upper low closing off in the Great Lakes. So that might be another trigger mechanism for severe weather toward the middle and toward the latter part of next week, and then that swings into the east, and we still have a trough in the east going into this is now May 22nd, and then getting close to the Memorial Day holiday weekend, the trough looks like it wants to pull out. So maybe, I mean, who knows if that's going to be real because um, by that's 2 weeks from now when we know when we run the next run of model guidance, it's going to be different. But if we're in a trough position for a couple of weeks, it is May, so sometimes the patterns like to change a bit faster than they do in the wintertime. Maybe we'll get a little break at the end of the month, the time for the holiday for the first summer holiday weekend.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes. So I'm sorry, Paul Reed. Uh, I, you're new to the channel. I don't recognize your name, so welcome to the channel. Welcome on the chat board. What we're looking at here is the upper air map at 18,000 feet, or roughly 18,000 feet, or 500 millibars. We're basically looking at the flow patterns across in the upper air. And I would just say, watch the show, and because we do this every night. So gradually you'll pick up things in terms of what we're doing and what the maps mean, et cetera, et cetera. But we're glad to have you on board. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on with the GFS as far as the surface is concerned. So you've got a low in southern Ohio that's going off the Virginia coast. Couldn't have this any time during the winter time. You're getting it now. And of course, that puts eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England in an onshore flow. That's why we call it gloom and doom weather. Meanwhile, you've got that other short wave that's coming out of Texas and Arkansas, moving across southern parts of Alabama during the overnight and Mississippi, and then into southern Georgia during the day tomorrow. But thankfully, in here in North Georgia, for me, I'm out of it. But you can see once we get to Saturday, then we get these upper troughs to deal with. So I guess if you wanted to pick which one of the 2 weekend days for the Northeast and Northern Mid Atlantic states is going to be the better day, probably Saturday will be a bit better than Sunday.
I
Then the up
agree.
right. I mean, that makes
Yes.
sense. And then the upper trough on Sunday is going to generate some on and off showers. Maybe the way the GFS has it, it's mostly Saturday night into Sunday morning, and then it kind of falls apart after that. Monday, a little bit of a break, but here's that low coming out of the southwest that goes into Missouri, so probably be some showers and storms in the middle and lower Mississippi Valley on Tuesday. And then that tries to swing over to the East Coast on Wednesday, and then that goes out. And then another stronger system comes out of Texas late in the week. As we said, there'll be a deeper trough in the middle Mississippi Valley during the middle latter part of next week, which is being reflected by the GFS producing rain and thunderstorms up and down the Mississippi Valley along about Thursday, and then moves into the east just in time for the next weekend, and there you have it. So busy pattern ahead, folks. I mean, it's just going to be busy at least till May 20th or 21st. That, from what it looks like.
Yep. And this Climate Prediction Center agrees with you right through the 8 to 14 day outlook. They've got generally, above normal chances of precipitation throughout much of the eastern part of the country. So I know people have been saying to me, I'm getting sick and tired of this, but I'm sorry. You're just going to get even sicker and more tired because that looks like it's going to be the story for a number of days to come.
And by the way, there's nothing new here that's going on in the Northeast and in the Mid-Atlantic states, particularly during the spring. It's a miserable time of year. It is the worst of all the seasons. The spring is to me the worst time of year, and it's like this almost every spring. Onshore flow, days, sometimes days and days of cloudy skies with on and off rain. Um, you get a nice day. You get a nice day. Maybe you string 2 nice days back to back, and then you have to deal with thunderstorms and heavy rains and all the rest of it. So, a few people are just sort of like the Northeast is now becoming the new Northwest. No, it's always been this way in the Northeast and in the northern Mid-Atlantic states in the springtime. I've always despised, personally, I've always disliked the spring for that reason, among other reasons, because of the fact that it's just not a nice time of year. It just isn't.
Frank Scalera says, "I hope we just don't have a repeat of last summer, a pattern like this. We don't need a hazy, humid, wet summer like last year." I'm sorry to tell you, Frank, that Climate Prediction Center's forecast for June, July, and August meteorological summer is indeed for again above normal temperatures and also above normal precipitation. So we may be again in line for a humid, wet, hazy type of summer. I hope it doesn't come that occur that way, but um, you know we're already into it apparently in this pattern that we're into right now.
On another subject matter, which I didn't mention earlier this week, but I meant to, the Weather Channel. I don't know if you're aware of this, Joe. The Weather Channel was sold again. So it was from its original, just the history of it, from the original owners. And it actually, it's not to make fun of the Weather Channel because this is the case throughout all of legacy media. Okay. Um, it was sold to NBC for like, I don't know, $1.5 billion. NBC bought the Weather Channel and then they wound up selling it to somebody else.
To
I
a
think
comedian,
what's that?
to an African American comedian. I have
No, no,
no.
no. I'm just running through the history before that.
Okay, all right.
Then they sold it for like, 100 million, or they lost like 80% of their money. And then IBM bought it, and then IBM had it for a while. And they formed the Weather Company, and now they sold the weather company to Byron Allen and a investment group led by him, and 12 they laid off I think 12% of the staff.
Wow.
But this is what's happening all across um, legacy media. Okay, and when I mean by legacy media, I'm talking about CBS, NBC, ABC. All the channels that were around BC before cable, and now of course people are cutting the cord. They've been cutting the cable cord. uh, the number of cable subscribers, I think, year over year has dropped like 25% because everybody's going to streaming. So this ain't done yet. I also actually mentioned the fact that the Fox Weather Channel as a competitor, is doing quite well. They have gotten most of the audience.
Yeah, well, they're on, but it's interesting on my channel. Excuse me, on my cable system, the Weather Channel is on channel 62. You have to go all the way up to 193 to find Fox. And maybe there are people out there who aren't even aware that Fox exists on their cable system, but they are there, and yeah, they're hungry, Joe. They are scurrying around and doing everything they can to make people aware of their presence, and apparently it's working because, as you just mentioned, people are going there as opposed to the Weather Channel. And the Weather Channel, of course, um, is yeah. Vince Croce says, yeah, I have Optimum, so it's one channel 193 on my system.
Yeah,
So
I have DirecTV Stream, so on mine it's channel 3. I think it's 360. The three weather channels are all next to each other. I think one is there's 361, 362, 363. So we have the weather. I have the weather channel, Fox Weather, and then AccuWeather, the AccuWeather channel. None of which I ever watch. Okay, at all, ever. But I happen to turn it on. I happen to turn on Fox Weather. Uh, Yeah, they kind of do. They kind of do weather almost like they're doing like you're watching a sporting event. And they got all these monitors all around, and they're switching back and forth from one part of the country to another. And I guess it works. Uh, it's not my cup of tea, but you know, I guess people like it. Uh, but at least they're doing weather, and they're not doing all those. When NBC had it, they were running all these movies and all these other shows uh, during off hours, and I don't know, some bean counter thought that they would make money that way.
somebody just asked on the chat board, do I have, was it J Justin B? Do I have Comcast up here in Putnam Valley? No. Basically, it's a monopoly. You cannot. The only cable service you can get in Putnam Valley is Altice, or what used to be Cablevision. We cannot get Verizon. We don't have any other cable service, so that's it. We're stuck with that, at least for the moment.
Now,
So
see here we have the cable company is Kinetic, and actually they're giving it away because no people are either dropping them and going to streaming. The electric company, which is where I get my internet service from, BRMC, Blue Ridge Mountain Electric. Um, so I get my internet from them, and I have DirecTV Stream, which is a little box, and there's no satellite dish, there's no nothing, and it works for me. And my bill is less than $100 a month, which is nice. Yeah, so who is it? Tom Contino the other night said that he was like his cable bill is like $260 a month. That's
wow.
nuts. That's nuts. Oh well. Anyway, you have Briller Jeopardy.
I believe I do. Um, and by the way, people are asking what this is on my forehead. This may very well be some kind of a bug or something that got me when I was chasing after my dog through the weeds yesterday, or through the woods. I mean, I know for one fact that as I was running around looking for the dog and screaming, I had all these teeny bugs and these big bugs or whatever like that. So one of them may have landed on me and given me a bite because that's what this I think is. Um, but anyway, he's upstairs right now, probably sleeping on the couch. So what else can I say? Let me look for Briller Jeopardy here, and Briller Jeopardy brought to you by. All right, so um, Joe, I think I don't have Briller Jeopardy.
You don't? Let me see if I
This
do.
is this is from Monday, 9:36, and these states for annual precipitation look very familiar: Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina. I think we did this.
Uh, oh, I have it. I got
Yeah.
it. All
Okay.
right. All right. So um, we're still on the average annual precipitation amounts by state. Okay. And tonight we begin with the great state of South Dakota. South Dakota, the average annual precip in South Dakota, Mr. Rayo.
Um. Oh, let's see. How
Too
about
too late. Mike Waterhouse already hit it on the first try. 20.
all
You
right?
snooze, you lose, Mr. Rayo. You snooze, you lose.
Yes,
Next on the list, we have the great state of Tennessee. Tennessee.
Tennessee. How about? I didn't give
Bent
a good.
Fork, Tennessee. From Bent Fork to Nashville to Memphis.
Right, Ben
One
Ford.
end of the state to the other.
Is there any way that we can go around so we miss Ben Ford? Well, let's see.
You, well, by the way, you know that actor you know who that was? That was Aaron Spelling.
Really?
Yes, that's Aaron Spelling.
That's
And for
amazing.
those of you who don't know who Aaron Spelling is, he went on to become a big producer and produced all these shows for ABC like Dynasty and Love Boat and a whole bunch of others. That was Aaron Spelling.
Amazing. How
Yes.
about Tennessee? How about for Tennessee? I'll say 45.
Tennessee is 45. Um, no.
No.
No. Uh, yes, 90210. That's another Aaron Spelling production. So back to Tennessee. 33, Vincent Croce is way too low. David Fuller, 40. Norm Roberts, 44. No, too low. Too low. Tennessee is going to surprise you a bit. Rich Rothmansky, closer at 52. And Vincent Croce, 54, Joe, 54. Now you said 45. So if you'd have flipped the 4 and a 5, you would have gotten 54.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, now this one is very difficult, okay, because it's a state that takes you like 12 hours to drive from one end to the other, maybe even more. Texas.
Texas. Oh boy. Yeah. How about? I don't know. I'll say double nickels, Joe.
No, Texas is one of those states where it's like, one side of the state gets 60 inches, the other side of the state gets 6 inches in terms of a total precip. So if you split the difference, you would have come closer. Jason Fox at 32 is close. Justin B is 33, a
Who
little
says
too
30?
high. Mike Waterhouse at 21 is a bit too low, but Craig Carlberg gets it right, Joe, at 29.
Wow.
29. Now,
Yeah. Tell that to the folks who live in Houston. They probably had that much in 2 days this
well,
past
that's
week.
that's what I'm saying. In Southeast Texas, it's probably 60 or 70 inches, and in West Texas, it's probably 6 or 7. Utah is next. Utah.
Utah. Ah, the greatest snow on earth. How about
Well,
20?
too high, Joe. Mike Waterhouse at 34, way too high. David Fuller at 15 is closer. Vincent Croce at 18. William Uber at 15, closer, but not low enough. Chuck Gardillo at 17. Tammy Steele gets it at 12. 12 for Utah. And our last state tonight is the great state of Vermont.
Well, Vermont certainly should be a lot higher than 12. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that they will probably be somewhere around, I'll say 43.
Oh, you have just redeemed yourself, Joe. Ring the bell.
Yes.
43.
Yes.
And a couple of folks got on the chat board, came closer, hit 43. Vincent Croce said 43. Pat BFD said 42. Frank R said 42. Mike Waterhouse 44. So that's close. Tyler Fiega said 44. William Uber said 43. So there you have it. All right. Other than the fact that I'm going to my grandson's birthday party on Saturday, I have a relatively quiet weekend. I'm done landscaping for now, so I can take a break from that. So I don't really have much in the way of plans going forward.
Okay. And Paul Reed says this could be a bruise on Joe Rayo the more I look at it. Is that all you people have been doing for the last 5 minutes is looking at this stuff?
Joe, they care about you.
Ha!
They care about you. All right. I
Keep
can't.
talking.
I honestly, I can't. Well, I'm on. I don't have you on a big monitor. I've got you on a small box, so I really can't. I can't even see it.
Right.
Oh,
No,
there it is. Oh, there it is. I see it now. And you get close enough to the camera.
yeah,
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, you probably bruised it, on some tree branch or something.
it's possible.
Maybe you got. Hopefully, it's not any kind of poison ivy.
I live on 6.3 acres, ladies and gentlemen. 1 acre of it is mostly grass, which I mow on a weekly basis, and the other 5.3 is woodland, rustic, anything that you possibly. And what makes it even worse is that there's a lot of rocks. So if I don't slip and fall on a rock and hit my head, there are tree branches and all sorts of wildlife out there. So this came from somewhere. I don't know where, but it probably came from my chasing after the dog yesterday afternoon and evening. So
All
what am I
right.
going to do?
It'll go away in a couple of days. Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. So if you purchase this or anything else from the Tempest website, use the coupon code SPRING2024, because if you do, you will get
10 big percent off. And Joe, on behalf of you and myself, we want to wish all of the people on the chat board and everybody who's watching right now, all the moms out there, a wonderful weekend and a wonderful day on Sunday. And we will be back on Mother's Day evening, 7:35, with another round of the Joe and Joe Weather Show.
David Fuller. Thanks for hitting the tip jar. Nighty night.
Night, folks.